The Carnegie Library in Waukegan, which I know you're very familiar with,
Yep.
they don't know what to do with it yet. Should it be torn down? Should it be renovated? What do you suggest?
I'm coming there next Saturday as a friend of the city, as a friend of the library. I grew up there and I was educated there starting when I was 8. I can't, the city has to, the citizens themselves have to know what they want in their hearts. I can't tell them what to want, but I'm there as a friendly witness, so that when they finally decide what to do, if it's creative, maybe I can help somehow. But I can't make the decision for them. I'm an outsider. So you run a terrible risk of people saying, how dare you show up late in time?
Well, you're not really an outsider because you are from Waukegan. We consider you a Waukeganite still. If they do decide to restore it, it'll be their choice, of course. Restored to what? Another library?
Some
What?
sort of library. I mean, there's always need for maybe a research library of some sort. I've said to them, if they decide to do something like that, I've got, hundreds of books that I might be able to contribute, and certain papers. I promised them to the Library of Congress, but there may be some way of splitting them up and giving some of them to Waukegan. And I have several friends who've collected my books for years, the 5,000 copies of various editions. And I was talking to this friend today. I said, what are you going to do with these 30 years from now? He's about 55, and he has no immediate plans to leave the world, of course. And I said, well, think about it, and it may be that you would want to offer them to Waukegan. But again, all kinds of, it could be some sort of art center. I don't know how many art centers you have in Waukegan now.
I don't know.
Yeah, and a music center, combination, maybe one room for music, one room for painting, one room for collections, research, and what have you. It's a solid building. It's built like most buildings in Europe to last forever, huh? And you couldn't knock it down if you wanted to. And it's a symbol of the greatest revolutionary in the history of the world, Andrew Carnegie. All the so-called revolutionaries weren't. They destroyed, huh? Lenin and Stalin, all the other people, they claimed to be revolutionaries.
You said you don't have much faith in the government, whether it be on any level. What if the city of Waukegan wanted to donate money to restore the library?
Local government is cognizant of the problems. State governments don't know, and national governments don't know, because they're not there. The people that know what Waukegan is the local politicians, the rabbis, the priests, and the ministers, huh? And maybe the head of the Red Cross, and you could name a few other people. And the news people who are around and see the teachers, the responsible citizens should be engaged in this along with the ordinary citizens. But any outside help, like state governments or national governments, are totally ignorant and blind, huh? And I used to live downtown in L.A. 50 years ago, and I knew all the homeless. See, they've been around forever. Huh? There's nothing new here. There's more of them. But I knew their names, and I knew where they lived. Homeless are not homeless. They have homes. They live underneath buildings. They live in bathtubs on the 3rd floor of the tenement. That is a home, huh? Not to us, but... yeah, and if you came to me 50 years ago and said, where does Jimmy live? I said, okay, 3 o'clock in the morning, we go up on the 3rd floor of the tenement, and he's in the bathtub there, huh? And sleeping, huh? And but if that personal research, you see, is what counts. A one-to-one relationship between the neighborhood and the people on the streets. And the government doesn't go after that, huh? It doesn't want to know that. So the people are still on the streets. That's some solution, isn't it, huh? And so I think Waukegan should know its own problems and what that building might be good for and what the needs of the teachers might be. To have a gathering of the teachers, perhaps, at the right moment. And the ministers and the priests who hear things personally that we don't know about, huh? And don't reveal, but you get the essence of the town.
I just want to ask, what are the implications if American corporations fail to develop these malls and restaurants downtown at a time when retail and restaurant industries are not doing well? And do you feel like Japanese or German companies, overseas investors, might come in and do the things that you would like to see, obviously, see American corporations do?
Well, if we don't do it, that's our fault. See, all this Japan bashing is nonsense. We've sold all this material to them. No one forced us, Rockefeller Center. No one forced Rockefeller Center to sell itself to the Japanese. And anyway, the Japanese don't own half as much in the United States as the English and the Dutch and the French. So what is all this talk? It's a result of World War II, and we're still bitter about. But both sides are bitter. You know, we misunderstood each other. The fascinating study in science fiction and technology. 500 years ago, the Portuguese and the Spanish came into Japan, and they introduced gunpowder, flintlocks, cannons, what have you. And after about 60, 70 years, the Japanese decided that war was no longer fun. It was not man-to-man. You kill people at a distance. There's no bravery there, is there? There's no conflict. There's nothing. So they did away with gunpowder, with cannons, with flintlocks, with guns, and they reversed the science fiction technological history of their country and went back to the sword for 400 years. And then when the Americans reopened Japan just before Lincoln, with Admiral Perry, we forced our way into Japan, sort of a violent thing to do. We didn't kill any people that I know of, but we insisted they open the port of Japan, Tokyo, and therefore that is part of the problem from 150 years ago that caused Pearl Harbor. You see how it all locks together?
And I think what a lot of Americans are disillusioned with, or maybe why they're still mad at Japan, is that they did catch us with our pants down, obviously, at Pearl Harbor. We won the war, and now they're conquering us again economically. As I look around this press conference room, I see Japanese equipment all over the place.
But again, that's our fault, and we rebuilt Japan. It's a proud history, actually. You examine what happened in Japan the last 45 years. We built Japan. We allowed them to come up out of the dust. We created them as the 51st state of the United States of America. In the history of the world, we are the only conquerors who have been as benevolent as we have been. We gave them their greatest emperor, MacArthur, and he ruled the country for a number of years, and he was beloved of the Japanese. And when he left Tokyo, people wept in the streets. You can't name another country in the history of mankind that has been as good as a conqueror as we have been. And we don't give ourselves credit for this. So we gave them the know-how, we gave them the robots, we gave them the knowledge, we gave them a parliament, we gave them a constitution. They're part of us. And what we should do instead of bashing is saying, hey, cousin, you are us, we are you. Now how can we get together and help each other instead of bashing each other? And it's going to take an act of great diplomacy and quietude to do this. And I don't see this among any of the people running for the president. I see a little bit in Bush, thank God, but not enough. There's got to be more, where we get together in more conferences and say we are twins, and indeed we are. We're closer to the Japanese than we are to the Germans in many ways. And we rebuilt Germany as the 52nd state of the United States of America. And in the history of the world, no one has ever done that. If Russia had, you see what Russia did to half of Germany, and that our half is the creative half. Yeah. So look what Russia did to Poland and to all the other countries of Eastern Europe. So we're a great nation. We've done great things. But we have to remind ourselves of our root system, what we've done right, what we've done wrong. And that all ties into the problems of Waukegan and Chicago. The mayors don't know. I beg pardon?
How do your books sell over in
Listen, comrade, I'm the biggest seller. Listen, I saw all the rubles they owe me now. They sent me a telegram.
Right.
They sent me a telegram a couple of years ago. Dear Mr. Bradbury, as the Minister of Cultural Relations, how can we improve relationships between Russia and the United States? I telegraphed back, send the rubles. So they owe me millions and millions of dollars, not rubles. And they have.
your books are being distributed?
I am among the top bestsellers in Russia and have been for years. And you know, it sounds like arrogant braggadocio, but there it is. Yeah. When I met Gorbachev in Washington D.C. 2 years ago, when he was introduced to me, he turned to his wife and he said, Raisa, here's the man that our daughter loves. And then I was introduced to her, and she caught my name, and she turned, she says, Mikhail, this is our daughter's lover. And he says, I know. So I'm going to go over eventually, and I'll come back with the money, I suppose.
Are there any manuscripts on Ray Bradbury's desk right now in the works?
Yeah, a new novel which will be out in 3 months, and I have a new book of essays which was just published, which I think they're going to sell up in Waukegan just tomorrow.
Great.
Obvious answers to impossible questions for the future. Huh?
What's the name of the book that'll be out in a few months?
Green Shadows, White Whale. 3/4 Ireland, 1/4 John Huston. And I have a new book of plays out, and my series is continuing, and I'm finishing 24 new scripts for that. Outside that, I worked on Moby Dick.
You did the screenplay, did you?
Screenplay for Moby Dick 37 years ago. Hard to believe, isn't it?
How were you approached for that?
I met him for dinner on St. Valentine's night 41 years ago, and I met him at Mike Romanow's. I gave him all my books. I said, it's very simple. I love you. I love your films. Maltese Falcon is one of the greatest films ever made. Someday, read my books and hire me. So he went off to Africa, and he wrote me a month later from doing The African Queen over there. And he said, you're right, we'll work together someday. I don't know on what, but we'll see. So 2 years went by. We corresponded once or twice, and he came back to town, and he offered me the job of Moby Dick, because some of my fiction, The Foghorn, about a prehistoric monster in the sea at night, falling in love with a lighthouse. Well, that's Melville. It's Shakespeare also, and it's the Bible, it's the Old Testament. So that's how I got the job.
Ray, do you sometimes feel with all your science fiction stories, perhaps you were born in the wrong time? Maybe you should have been cast sometime in the future?
No, it's the perfect time. Look how I'm spoiled rotten. I'm here. I wouldn't be here tonight if I hadn't been born at the right time. I dreamt of going to the moon when I was 9 years old. I thought I would be in my 80s before we did it. Hell, I was only 49, huh? Talk about being born right. And I'm in all the schools now. If I'd been born 20 years earlier, I wouldn't have been in the schools. Or if I'd been born 40 years later, who knows what the schools will be.
Getting to science for just a little bit. Of course, we talked about it, already tonight. But are we going to be, you think, in our lifetimes, or at least in our children's lifetimes, colonizing Mars, the other planets in the solar system?
Well, I hope so. I've been talking about this. Carl Sagan and I have been together in the Planetary Society in Pasadena for many years. We wrote a book about Mars 20 years ago with Bruce Murray and Arthur C. Clarke and Walter Sullivan called Mars and the Mind of Man. And we belong there. It's an exciting thing to do. We don't know anything about the universe. We've only begun to know. We don't know anything about life. We know the surface. We don't know the modus operandi. Why is gravity? Why did was the universe ever created? It seems not. It's been here forever. I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory. It's just been forever. That's impossible, isn't it? You can't create something out of nothing. Therefore, it has to have been here forever. Well, that boggles the mind to the point of insanity. That being true, why aren't we more curious about getting out into it and having the ecstatic feeling that we had the night we landed on the moon 22 years ago, huh? But that was the greatest night in the history of mankind.
It almost seems as if our space program has stood still since then.
Still, it's gone into the grave. We've never had a president that really cared. Kennedy didn't care. He made that one speech, and then he went back to laying all his girlfriends, huh? And you may quote me.